Medieval was actually the name of a Doom mod we had back in
Yep.
like 1997 or something.
Yeah.
So we were like probably like 9 years old or something. We came up with this name, Medieval. Pretty cool how we kept it this whole time.
Yeah.
And it like turned into a real thing, you know?
That's crazy. So this has been like a lifelong
Pretty much.
build up
Yeah.
to this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Medieval is a high-octane throwback first-person shooter in the vein of classics like Heretic and Hexen. It's the debut title from small indie studio Indefatigable, made up of artist Simon Rance and programmer Leon Zawada, who split the design work between them. After Medieval's critically and commercially successful launch out of early access in late June 2019, I sat down with the developing duo to discuss their early years modding Doom, their take on the retro FPS revival, and how a decades-old mod laid the foundation for their latest title. Can you give me an idea, maybe even like a tutorial on how to pronounce the name of your development studio?
Yeah, it's Indefatigable, which means unable to be fatigued. It's one of those old words like, you know, invincible or illustrious and all those kind of things that they used to name boats after. Because we like this Horatio Hornblower series, and the boat that he sails on is called the Indefatigable, and they all call it the Indie. So it's like indie games, which is like this like intro.
Yeah, exactly. That was the whole
Yeah.
thing.
I had to Google it, to be honest, but then it made but it made a lot of sense once I did. I'd like to hear from both of you. What's the sort of raw, unfiltered reaction to the game's really positive reviews it's been getting, and from what I can tell at least, pretty steady sales as well? What's that like after, you know, like you said, about 3 years of development?
We didn't expect it at all. Like, we thought, you know, people who play those games would love it. The amount of people who've like come forward and said they really love the game and have like really love it. They're not just like, yeah, this is cool. It's really cool that it's like what we put out like was picked up by the people who, you know, play that kind of thing and enjoy it.
And it's like, it's kind of mind-blowing though, because you don't expect it. Wanted to make a good game that like we would both enjoy, you know, and it turns out everyone else liked it as well, so that was great, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Outlets like Destructoid and PC Gamer ranked it in the mid-80s, which is really strong, obviously. But some people feel differently, and I've got a Metacritic user, it's Shaffle who gave it a 2 out of 10 and said the graphics is too old for my liking.
Yeah.
Gameplay is good, but there is no real story. Any thoughts on that review?
Well, I mean, it's personal preference, isn't it? Like, if you don't like the graphics, you don't like the graphics. And there is no story, but well, there is a story, but it's just very basic because it's an action game.
And so what classic FPS has inspired Medieval? It's obviously wears its influences on its sleeve in many ways, but were there any particular games that had a big influence on the title?
I'd say like Doom is a big one because we were both Doom modders, and we've been working like making mods for that and WODs for that since we were kids, since we were like 8 or 9 years old. Like we never like set out to like copy anything. I mean, there's influences from, I would say, you know, Heretic and Hexen in terms of like the Tome of Power thing where your weapons get powered up, and then we kind of reworked that into like a different mechanic. There's influence from all sorts of stuff, really. I guess Quake, the level design, I like verticality and level design, and the grittiness of how it looks and stuff like that, and the cool sounds. And it was also influenced by a platformer called Gods, which is actually sitting up here behind me. You can kind of see like the dude like fighting the, you know, demons and stuff, and it's kind of got that similar. He's got a mask as well.
And were you going back and replaying games during development to try and recapture or at least refresh yourself on some of those influences, or was it kind of hard baked into your mind what that might look like?
I did. I went and played like Doom and stuff, and you go back and you think like it feels slippery and stuff, and I was like, I don't remember this because I haven't played it for ages. And Quake is really sort of a bit stiff sometimes, although you can move really fast if you know what you're doing. We wanted to like make Medieval to be this kind of old meets new in terms of like, you know, it should feel good to control, feel fun to just shoot stuff. That was like the main thing.
We were trying to get the feeling rather than just going in and recreating a thing from an old game. The feelings were like, you know, from when you're a kid. So So like it was, yeah, like you said, it was like hard baked in there. So yeah.
So in a way, you're trying to recreate what it felt like to play them for the first time back in the day, but in a modern context, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what did that look like in the end? I mean, obviously, I've played it. I understand there's a tighter level design, but how did you try and recapture that while still keeping it like a throwback in a way?
Well, we just we didn't really have like a set game design or anything for this one. We just kind of, as we went along, we thought what would be fun, and we would just experiment with stuff, and that's how we ended up with like the movement. We did it originally. We had stuff like falling damage, and we're like, this is not working. This is horrible, and it was a bit stiffer. I remember we like did one thing that some old FPS games is you have this kind of slight little bit of momentum when you like land somewhere. And so we kept that, and like lots of air control.
You mentioned no fall damage, and I mean the first moment of the game is you plunging into this body of water. Which is a great sort of intro. It's literally just like you're physically diving into the game.
When we were like 7 or 6 or something, we lived at the end of a cul-de-sac in New Zealand near Wellington. We just lived across the road from each other, and one day I think we just like we were up there and we were just like, hey, want to be friends? And that was basically it. So we've been friends for like ages now, like forever, pretty much.
Something years. Yeah.
Eventually, like we got Doom. It was the best thing ever. We're like way too young for it, but it was like that's why it was so fucking cool. Then we discovered WADs and stuff, and that the rest was history. Like we just would. Pretty much every game, if we could try to find an editor, we would try to edit it. Fast forward to about 2012, Leon was contacted to do testing on the Rise of the Triad 2013 game because we had made a mod, like a Rise of the Triad remake in Doom. Yeah, we were going to get put on testers, and then we were like, hey, Leon can do level design, I can do 3D, and then so we ended up just upgrading to those roles. And then ever since then, we've just been making games together.
Before 2013, when you started working on Rise of the Triad, were you doing other game development, or had you sort of branched out to other careers?
No, I was like working in a cafe, just making coffee and stuff. I mean, I'm a massive fan. I mean, like, I've made this like total conversion for Doom called Return of the Triad, and it was like basically recreated everything from Rise of the Triad in the Doom engine, every enemy, every weapon, like it was it was a huge undertaking. It was like making a game from scratch, basically, anyway. So, yeah, massive fan of Rise of the Triad.
You guys said that you were modding Doom and other FPSs for quite a while. Have any of those early designs or concepts made their way into a Medieval?
Hell yeah. A Medieval was actually the name of a Doom mod we had back in like 1997 or something.
Yeah.
And it was nothing. It was just a level. But I think it was real funny because we were like probably like 9 years old or something. We came up with this name, a Medieval, which is like sort of a pun on medieval. I thought it was really funny. Pretty cool how we kept it this whole time.
Yeah.
And it like turned into a real thing,
Yeah, and we started making a completely different version of Medieval
in
the
right.
UK.
Yeah.
So it's had a few over its lifetime of the name, there's a few completely different projects attached to it that never went anywhere until this Medieval.
Yeah. That's crazy. So this has been like a lifelong
pretty much
build up to this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of started where I just thought, it'd be cool if we used a sprite, but with modern graphics, like the weapon sprites. So I just did a really basic test, and it worked out real well. And I was like, okay, we need to make a game out of this. Yeah. That was actually the catalyst, was seeing a sprite weapon in Unreal 4 with PBR rendering, modern rendering. That's pretty much where the game came from. It wasn't like we had this game plan. We just thought, let's make a retro shooter, but with magic weapons, because no one really does that. And
looking back on it now, was development of a Medieval easier, harder than you thought? Did it go to plan?
It was frighteningly easy.
Yeah, right.
Every other thing we've worked on, has always had issues, and to me it didn't feel right because I was like, oh, when is something bad gonna happen? You know, when is somebody gonna come and sabotage it, or you know, like we get some huge technical error? But no, it's been like super stress free. Like we didn't even work weekends. We just like, you know, work when we felt like it, and it came out in like no time, like 2 years or something. We've been working on it, you know.
Were there any ambitions or ideas that didn't make it to the final game? Was there anything that got cut?
Yeah, there was some stuff that got cut. There's quite a lot of levels. I like to make stuff and then abandon it, like when I start to hate it. There was a couple of weapons we had that got cut. We had this thing that was like fire lightning. I couldn't really get it to work early on, so I just like abandoned that. And this like glitter stuff, like a hail of like magical projectiles, that didn't make it either.
And so obviously there's tons of conventions of old first-person shooters. Were there any that you knew you just wanted to keep in terms of movements or feel? And on the same side, what were the things you didn't want to carry over into a medieval?
No reloading, that's one of them. Because it's a very fast-paced game and you don't really want to be stuck sitting there doing nothing for a couple of seconds. Where there's like 7 weapons, which is fairly reined in as well. Like a lot of people say there's not a weapon that you don't use. Like they're all useful, even the melee weapon, which like will suck enemies in at a sort of short distance too. So it's like always useful.
The 7 weapons, 7 is the number because of Doom, pretty much.
Yeah.
7 weapons.
It's like not too many, not too few.
Yeah, and we got to design them really well rather than having like 20, which some of them you just never use.
Yeah, key hunting. I mean, like we do have keys in the game, but
like you don't get like you're not like walking around 15 minutes trying to find them or the door stuff. We would like try to design the levels to funnel you back to where you need to be, stuff like that.
I think a lot of those type of things are subconsciously we just fix them without even realizing it, probably. Just
from playing those games so much. Yeah. They kind of just, you have to go that way, so that kind of just makes you do the entire level loop rather than just go straight to the exit or something.
Yeah, and it feels like less of a treasure hunt, which a lot of those old games feel like.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, obviously, it's a pretty competitive space at the moment for sort of throwback first-person shooters. I mean, the success of the Doom reboot and that sequel has put, I think, that style on the map. And you look at even games like Dusk, another New Blood game. So there's obviously interest in those games, but obviously more than ever, there's also, I suppose, a saturation that means you have to stand out. I mean, was there anything that you guys wanted to do to differentiate yourselves?
Well, we were there before that was kind of all happening. There was Strafe was one that came out before us, and Dusk was sort of slightly before us as well.
6 months.
Iron Maiden is another one that's being made by 3D Realms and Voidpoint. That one was started way before us. It was like 2015, I think they were starting that. I think we came out just at the right time, like 6 months after Dusk, I think, and Dusk is like the big one as far as I know. I mean, I think they're all doing pretty decently. I mean, cool. ours is the, but ours is the only one with that like look, you know, with the full PBR, like the full reflections, and so it's like modern and new. It's not full on old replication. I think it's, you know, kind of like a couple of years ago we had lots of platformers coming out, and I mean we still do, but I think those kind of people grew up to make games, and I think it's the same with people who grew up with Doom, and they are now when they're adults and have the time to make the games.
Yep.
I don't know, we never really set out to like compete or anything. We just wanted to make a game, and this just kind of happened to be something that we could make, you know, with like a small team. The style is much faster to make that amount of content.
Because you just have levels, they don't even have to have anything to do with each other. You just make a bunch of levels and stuff. And like I think having magic weapons, that was a big deal. Like
that was cool.
Everything else is guns. We get compared sometimes to Heretic and Hexen, but really all that shares is a few things like the weapons. But I think that's a really cool thing. Like, you're a mage, but you're not like a slow magic shooter. You're just a badass, you know,
battle mage.
And that makes it stand out. And doing magic means you can be real colorful, which is always really good and fun.
But like, if we had like, you know, a couple of $1 million or something, we would have done a nice, awesome looking game, you know, with cool graphics. It's just we, you know, had hardly any money.
Which
is us too, basically. So it's one of the reasons. So the game's quite polished because it's been in early access for it was about a year, I think it was. Yeah.
And that was your first early access experience for both of you?
Yeah. Valve was like, put it up on early access, and we were like, what? Apparently they reckon it's really good.
So you didn't feel like that early access release dampened the momentum of the initial release? Do you think it worked in its favor?
No, I think it helped. I think it did the opposite. I think it helped build it up. Yeah, because everyone was saying how great Medieval is, and then when it finally came out, it had like, 40,000-50,000 wish lists or something when it actually came out on release, and so it was.
And I think it was overwhelming, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was overwhelmingly positive when it came out. Like the day it came out. So. Yeah, at one point it was actually the highest rated FPS on Steam. It was like above Portal, and we were just like, what the hell? What? But when it released, it like went down. I think it's on 4 or something, and Dusk is number 3, so we were in the top.
Still pretty cool.
Still in the top 5, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Dusk is also a game published by New Blood Interactive.
Yeah.
Is there a sort of healthy competition? Are you in contact with the Dusk dudes?
We talk to them all the time. There was no like competition because we always felt they were separate games. Like ours is like a fantasy type shooter, and their one was this horror like Quakey style thing. And I like Dusk. I played this like 2 or 3 times. So I thought it was awesome.
Now we're coming towards the end, but we've got a number of questions from some Reddit users. Comrade Komsky asks, what in your mind makes up the fundamental aspects of a quote old school shooter besides level design and aesthetic?
I think, the simple weapon roster, no reloading, fast movement, more interesting enemies.
I think the biggest thing is the attacks of the enemies should be like varied. Like not having a lot of attacks, but each enemy does one attack, so you can learn it. But they all do pretty different things to each other. Even though we got different ones every episode, I think you learn them pretty quick. They mentioned not counting level design, but level design is a huge part of it, I think.
It's a massive part. You can't ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just, it's not real spaces. You're making like stuff that makes no sense, but that's what plays the best,
Another big thing is not taking away control from the player. So a lot of games these days you'll be like in a level or something, and then all of a sudden you're in a cinematic or something's happening. I don't like that. I like being in control the whole time. I think it's cool.
Andrew Paolo asks, if you could get your hands on any classic FPS license for your own use, which one and how would you tackle it?
Oh my god.
Jeez, that's a big one.
Which one?
Well, I've already done Rise of the Triad.
I don't know. I just want to make... I feel like we want to make our own stuff.
Yeah.
So therefore, we wouldn't want to copy somebody else's
I mean,
name.
Maybe there's like an old one that people don't really remember much, but really we liked. That would have been Rise of Triad. I'm honest.
Yeah, I would pick something more obscure because you have more freedom. Like if you pick something popular, like say you went with Quake or Doom, you could never live up to it. I mean, the Doom guys did that, which was really good. But if we got Quake, I reckon we could probably make a really cool game. But there'd be like half the people that would hate you.
Yeah, I know. They'd be like, "What's this? This is different."
Yeah. So the more niche, the better. You don't want to ruin people's childhoods, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, the main thing is we want to make our own stuff.
Explosive Vacation asks, do you have an idea for your next game?
Yeah, we do, but we don't want to say anything because it's too early, Well, like right now, we're just playing around with a few things.
We've had game ideas since before Medieval. There's game ideas out there that we've talked about at length, so there's a lot. And actually, we do have some game design docs, but really simple ones for some of them.
Yeah, and we've got some in-depth ones for ones if we get tons of money.
Yeah, that's the thing. We get millions of dollars.
Hey there, thanks for checking out my interview with the team at Indefatigable. You know what to do if you want to see more of my content in the future, and please head down to the comments below to offer any suggestions for developers you'd like me to interview in future videos. And while you're there, I'd like to know what's your favorite old school FPS. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you next time.